Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
One of the big themes of 2017 is that the GST pain is now behind us. So hopefully organized players will now start benefiting. There is a lot to look out on other issues as well in 2018, especially if it is a farm-focused budget. For all the trends in 2018, we are joined by Mr. Harsh Mariwala, Chairman and Managing Director, Marico. Good morning, Mr. Mariwala. Always a pleasure having you with us. Thank you very much for joining. What would you look at as the big trends in 2018? Will this long-awaited, formal sector taking over informal sector be one of them?
Yeah, I think we are seeing a definite improvement in the overall business scenario in terms of demand, both urban and rural, and it's a gradual improvement. It will take some more time. It may take one or two more quarters for it to normalize, but I think the main pain behind the GST implementation is behind us. The government is also very proactive in terms of handling and ensuring that all the snags which were there, whether it is related to the GST network or form filling or refunds, I think they are very proactive about it, and they are going in a very organized manner to resolve all the issues of trade and industry. So I'm very hopeful that I think the GST benefits will start flowing in next year.
Okay. Mr. Mariwala, good morning. There's other issue that I wanted to discuss with you. Of late, we have seen quite a bit of decline in edible oil prices. Is that sort of going to help companies like yours?
We are not so much in edible oils. Our oil overall contribution or the sales of oil, Saffola is there, but that just forms about 10-15% of our turnover. So, but Saffola is made out of safflower oil, and I think in that case, we import a lot of safflower oil. We also source it from India, so I don't see too much benefit because of the fact that the overall contribution of edible oil is low. And number two, some of the edible oils which we are consuming are imported. Separately, we also in coconut oil, where we've seen a huge increase in prices, almost more than doubling, 2.5 times the prices in the last 1.5 years. Okay. So that has impacted our margins to some extent.
Okay. Mr. Mariwala, good morning. You fleetingly mentioned how rural demand is picking up. We have actually seen a couple of good years of monsoons, higher MSP prices, etc.
Yes.
Do you think the pickup in rural demand could be the story of 2018?
I hope so, because in the last 2 years we were impacted by two big reforms. One is demonetization, and this year it was GST, and that had its own impact on the rural demand because of wholesalers not getting used to the reforms, and they were impacted. And I think that's settling down now. We definitely feel that all the other steps taken by the government, whether it's infrastructure or roads, MSP, all that will help the rural demand, and I'm quite hopeful that the rural demand will increase in the next year.
One of your peers, Mr. Mariwala, was telling us that sales channels got damaged because of GST, and prior to that a little bit because of demon, more because of GST. Was that the experience? And have you all been able to put in alternative channels or refurbish the old ones?
The experience is yes, that the channels were impacted more through whatever sales was happening through wholesalers to rural retailers, because there was a certain fear of the unknown. What will GST do to my tax planning? There were some issues to do with implementation and like form filling, and I mean, most of them had to go to a chartered accountant to get the forms filled, and that was adding to their cost. But I think things are settling down. The government is also, I just read today that the government is now thinking of combining all three forms to one form and make it easier for the trade. And I'm sure with all those steps taken, the rural demand will bounce back. Separately, for organizations which were impacted, I mean, we have taken steps to ensure that the rural distribution is handled directly by our distributors, and the role of the wholesalers to that extent would get reduced.
Generally your volumes did well when you last reported numbers. You spoke about Parachute and value-added hair oils growing by about 12% in volumes. Saffola volumes, okay, that was lower at 3%, but other volumes have done reasonably well. how do you assess volumes? It's a little difficult because I guess you'll also climb up the value-added chain. But generally, do you think volumes are picking up? Can we bet on growth in 2018?
I would say definitely better than 2017.
Okay.
Because of settling down of GST and demonetization. So to that extent, last 2 years, because of big reforms, the volumes have had its own share of impact. So with the settling down of these two reforms, I definitely see that the volume will bounce back for 2018.
Okay. Two trends that I wanted your views in. Of course, Marico has in the past said that they will expand in these two categories. One is health food and the other one is male grooming. You know, these two spaces have suddenly spurted on the growth charts. But do you see Marico making a lot of fresh investments in these two spaces?
See, I don't handle day-to-day management of Marico. So to that extent, I would prefer if you confine your questions to macro issues, but just to answer the question, we have to identify newer categories and we have to make investments in newer categories. And these two categories, male grooming as well as healthy foods, is categories of the future, because males are increasingly taking to personal care products, and overall there is high sensitivity to using healthy foods and healthy eating. So I think these are categories of future. We have to be proactive and we have to be first movers in being there. So I reckon that I think we have to invest for the future, and it may take some time. We have to take a long-term viewpoint of these two categories and bet on the growth of these two categories.
Actually, the reason I was asking you is, it brings me to my next question about the long-term target that Marico has. I mean, you guys have spoken in the past about getting to a 10,000 crore revenue by 2020. I think you should ask the managing director of Marico.
I'm not the managing director. I'm not the managing director of Marico, so please. I mentioned earlier that don't ask questions about Marico.
No, Mr. Mariwala, I wanted this comment from you in terms of how India Inc. would react. You know, today SEBI is going to pronounce upon whether any defaulter should declare his debt, his default, to the exchange within 24 hours. That rule was to become effective on October 3rd, but it got pulled back. It will probably be nuanced. But as a representative of India Inc., how would you react if all listed companies were told, declare your default to the exchange?
See, I think it may, if the list is long and there are some surprises, it may cause some degree of, shall I say, fear psychosis in the market. And it all depends on the degree of default and when can that get rectified. So to ask all the defaults to be rectified, I personally think that may raise unnecessary a lot of red flag. I personally think that it should be above a certain level, and you can define the level, but even a small default for whatever reason, it could be a short-term aberration, would actually unnecessarily create a lot of panic.
Yeah, we will know later today, sir, whether there is some such a threshold. Actually, many people have advised that the default above a certain threshold as a percentage of sales should alone be, pulled up for exposure to the exchange. But let us see what SEBI comes up with. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us a peep into 2018 as you see it. Have a great year ahead.